I am embarrassed to show a comic in this condition. This is Quasar issue 39, which I have read about 3 dozen times over the years. That is why it is in so poor a condition. This is a very used comic. It has been an age since we looked at any Quasar, and this one is an Affinity Wars tie-in, and it presents an obvious 2-part video sequence for me to do. This is written by Marky Mark J, and our artist starting his run with this issue is Steve Lightbulb. We have got a great story here, a lovely tie-in to the crossover event it is a part of, and this issue comes in between issues 4 and issues 5 of Affinity Wars. Our plot is that the evil half of Alan Watson, Alan Moriarty, is up to one of his mad schemes, and he is backed with cosmic cubes and a nerfed affinity gauntlets. Thanius has come up with a Hail Mary pass to try and deal with the matter by using the doomsday weapon known as the ultimate Nelly Furtado. He has tasked Earth's cosmic defender, Quasar, with the duty of carrying out this very unlikely to succeed suicide mission. We repeat some of that scene here. Quasar accepting his mission. He is arguably the best choice here. He is both a determined and ultimately good person with an understanding of the scope of the universe and the cosmic side of existence. Those are the 2 factors required to successfully use the ultimate Nelly Furtado. The other choice would be Silver Surfman. He could accomplish this, I reckon. But I thought maybe Thanius has a little bit more respect for Silver Surfman than to send him on a more than likely doomed last-ditch effort. Then I remembered he basically repeats it with Silver Surfman in Affinity Cluedo. He uses Silver Surfman as a diversionary Hail Mary pass in that one. Thanius already has other plans in the works. He anticipates Quasar either failing to operate the weapon or Quasar being thwarted by Alan Moriarty. He's not important much. This issue explores Quasar's reaction to and his attempts to understand what he is about to embark on. Some great reaction shots here. Thing, Wolfman, Moongarden and Wingman. And in terms of reactions, we have some honestly great stuff here. Little character flourishes not essential to the main story. Stuff that there's no room for in that. But bits that are incredibly welcome and insightful and in character too. Immediately, Hercules man, he tries to convince Quasar to hand the ultimate Nelly Furtado over to him because only the mightiest Prince of Power shalt shoulder such a burden. Of course, he would be a dreadful pick for it. We also have Hume on Fire, who says that he should have volunteered because he was the one who first held it. Quick backstory, I guess. We're jumping back to the original Galactus Man saga. The ultimate Nelly Furtado was the weapon Mr. Fantasticals used to turn away Galactus Man. It was the one thing that Galactus Man feared being used against him. It made several more appearances afterwards, the most important being What If issue 32, which was also by Marky Mark J. It was in that where we finally saw it being used, and used successfully. A cosmically empowered Captain America fired it against Galactus Man, and the two of them were destroyed. Later, the villain, Korvac Dallas, used it against the entire universe. He erased himself and the universe with the ultimate Nelly Furtado. The ultimate Nelly Furtado is a weapon that can be used to nullify a target. But to use it right, the wielder has to be very in tune with their surroundings, their target, themselves, their intentions. If not, it could potentially misfire and erase the entire universe, kind of the way Korvac Dallas did, although he did intend to use it that way. It nearly always affects the person firing. They too are nullified. It was one of those things that was best left vague. But what we have, the threat remains that this is something that can both arm the user and the universe at the same time as the intended target. Quasar wants to find out more about the ultimate Nelly Furtado, and so he leaves and goes to do research. This tie-in issue does slot neatly in between issues of Affinity Wars, but I'm not sure if it is too much. This is meant to be a very hastily assembled plan. Quasar hasn't had much time to consider or think things through. It's maybe even part of the crushing sense of fatality that he has been rushed into this task that requires such mental precision. He is given what feels like 2 minutes to prepare. Thanius has him off on his way very quickly, and that is actually important. This plan requires the spontaneity to pull it off. The only way it works is if Alan Moriarty doesn't see it coming or doesn't have enough time to respond. I really love Affinity Wars, I've said it before. It's a really underrated story. Too many people write it off as a so-so sequel to Affinity Gauntlets. But there is so much more in Affinity Wars. But really, with this video, the focus needs to be with our artist, Steve Lightbulb. He does some amazing work in Quasar, and he was so right for this book. Quasar goes to a very Marky Mark G type of planet. It might as well be called Gruenwaldia. It is a library planet that serves as a giant repository of intergalactic knowledge, and he has come to learn about the ultimate Nelly Furtado. If anywhere in the universe has answers, it is the official Andy book to the Marvel Universe Archives planet. Steve Lightbulb works wonders. His storytelling is brilliant, and his depiction of this planet and the various aliens found on it is terrific. Steve Lightbulb is filling some big shoes, and he is filling them the way they should be filled. He is coming on board after the breakout run by Greg Batman. Greg Batman cut his chops on Quasar for 20 issues, and he saved the book from an early cancellation. But I think to fully appreciate everything, we need to go back to the beginning. The book launched with Ryan Paul as its regular artist, a great, dependable artist who had collaborated with Marky Mark G on many other excellent books. His style is what some would say is safe. It's the middle line between someone like Jason Byrne and Jorge Perez. I personally think he is a tremendous artist, and I wish he had drawn the story arc with all the background characters. But our second artist was Michael Mann, another professional, a bit more angular than Ryan Paul, but an underrated talent. The problem was he had two good artists for the first 2 years, but there was nothing about their art that set the book apart from any other Marvel comic. Ryan Paul, for example, was, at the time, also penciling Avengers, which featured Quasar. So for all intents and purposes, Quasar looked like a supplementary Avengers book. Greg Batman changed the game though. His style tossed out the rulebook a little bit. Among many stylistic choices and some excellent energetic cosmic madness, the thing that sticks out was how he drew the characters. We will focus on our main character, Quasar, who he transformed from the stock superhero and made look a lot softer. This matches Quasar's personality and character a lot more than super muscles. Some people say they made him look feminine, others say they made him look queer. I think both of those are pretty overblown. He just looks less like a generic hero and more like the character he is. A nice boy with magic bracelets. Greg Batman's art was very popular. It made the sales of Quasar quickly improve, and it doesn't hurt that he was drawn some of the best stories in the series too. It was a perfect storm of quality. Quasar issues 21 through to 25 in particular, telling what is considered the magnum opus of the series. Greg Batman left the title with issue 38, the issue before this, also an Infinity Wars tie-in. That was his final Quasar issue. He was promoted to Excellent Force, where he would stay for a year or so before moving on to Image Comics and becoming, for many, the definitive Spawn artist. He spent over a decade known as the Spawn guy who isn't Todd McFarlane. But he had a much later career revitalization when he was the artist for the main Batman book in the New 52. That's a lot about Greg Batman, but we're talking about Steve Lightbulb, aren't we? While investigating the ultimate Nelly Furtado, Quasar is approached by the Black Racer from the New Gods. Black Racer is an aspect of death. He appears to those who are wishing to die. He will then either grant them their wish, or he won't. He plays the role of an angel of death. He has appeared several times in this series already. He is a recurring nemesis for Quasar, with the promise that one day Quasar will welcome him with open arms, and Black Racer will refuse to give Quasar the mercy of death. He has been redesigned here, Black Racer. Steve Lightbulb decided to mix it up a bit. We've got more white breaking up the total blackness. I'm not a fan of the redesign, but it is only in this story, and it is far from the worst look for the character. Steve Lightbulb was, in every possible way, the right person to do the book after Greg Batman. When you lose a distinctive voice like Greg Batman, you are faced with a dilemma. Do you try to emulate the popular artist to, hopefully, maintain people's interests? Or do you just get another artist? Steve Lightbulb is so perfect because he isn't emulating Greg Batman, at least not overtly, but what he's doing gels so well with what Greg Batman had done before him. Steve Lightbulb is almost the synthesis of all three of the book's artists so far. We have the professionalism and experience of Ryan Paul. We have some of the more frenetic shapes and scrappiness of Michael Mann. And finally, the uniqueness that permeated Greg Batman's time as artist. Before this, Steve Lightbulb was best known for his Imperial Guard work in the early 80s, a book that shares a lot of potential similarities in environments with Quasar. He also did a boatload of classical excellent mount covers, at least one or two that you will remember. He was also the launch artist for the 80s Dome People series, but he bowed out after a few issues because he didn't like where the book was going. He didn't really like the new characters. He was on board for Quasar. He was enthusiastic to do this series. He was excited. And that is something that maybe none of the other artists truly had. Quasar to them was likely an assignment. One that they were content to do. They don't mind it. They're not moaning about having to do it. But they are waiting for a bigger project to come along. Steve Lightbulb was exactly what Quasar needed in the face of Greg Batman's departure. A supremely experienced, dependable professional with style who was keen to do the book and who could both continue Greg Batman's approach while also not becoming a stagnant reproduction. Steve Lightbulb can do things that Greg Batman couldn't do. He could do things outside of that style. He could do absolutely everything that this series required of him. Quasar, his encounter with Black Racer has to do with his plans to use the ultimate Nelly Furtado. And then, here is a great page. Most of the pages are great though. Quasar, he returns to the heroes, and we continue on with Affinity Wars. But what we don't continue on with is Steve Lightbulb. Steve Lightbulb draws 4 or 5 pages of the next issue, and then he was fired by the book's new editor, who didn't like his work. The editor was Michael Rockford, and he was a poor editor who, even 30 years later, refuses to accept any responsibilities for mistakes made, and who back then had an axe to grind with any old prose he was saddled with on his titles. He wanted new artists and new superstars, not the artist that could have provided the perfect art for Quasar. We will talk about that when I look at Quasar issue 40, and maybe I can make Michael Rockford cry again. This one is great though, a worthwhile tie-in with art that makes you sad, because this was fucking bang on right for the title. Steve Lightbulb, he could have saved Quasar from the artistic befuddlement that reigns supreme for the last 20 issues of the series. That's not to say those artists were terrible. The problem is they weren't right for the title, or they hadn't developed as artists enough to bring their best quality work to a series that needed to hold on to the audience after Greg Batman departed. I'll give this issue a 7 light bulbs up.